former chief executive of the Trump 2016 presidential campaign, former chief strategist in the White House during the first part of the Trump administration. He calls himself an economic nationalist. His enemies say he's a white nationalist, and his organization, The Movement, promotes and supports right-wing parties right across Europe. Mr. Bannon, can I ask, first of all, your reaction to Iowa? Not a surprise, and I suppose it still leaves the possibility of an upset in New Hampshire, but it does seem that Trump is on the way to being a shoo-in as the candidate.
I wouldn't say shoo-in. Look, we got to take care of New Hampshire. You've got, Andrew, $250 million, almost $250 million was spent in Iowa by the big donors, the oligarchs in the United States of America, Wall Street, the titans in Silicon Valley, backing DeSantis and backing Nikki Haley. And so those guys are not going to give up. They see Nikki Haley as their vessel, neoliberalism, neocon convictions and policies. They see New Hampshire as a possibility they can win. I think this is going to be very tough, just given the money that's going to get poured in the back of Nikki. Obviously, the MAGA movement, the base of the Republican Party, support President Trump, an outstanding performance last night, particularly given the weather and particularly given the money spent against him. Nikki Haley spent $37 million of the Koch's money in the last 3 weeks.
Why do you think Trump and Haley fell out so badly? Because, after all, she was his ambassador at the UN. She was a loyal servant of President Trump back in the day. Something seems to have gone badly wrong between them. I mean, he's using the birther conspiracies against her now, for instance.
First off, I totally disagree that she was loyal. I was actually in the city of London at Bloomberg's headquarters giving a talk on the day that she resigned as UN ambassador. Remember, it was 3.5 weeks before the 2018 midterm when Nancy Pelosi was running to take back the House on a platform of impeach Trump. Nikki Haley came out with 3 weeks to go and said she resigned. She could have waited 3.5 weeks to do it. At Bloomberg at that time, they asked me the question live, and I said, Nikki Haley is ambitious as Lucifer. And she's cunning. She's not to be trusted. I never trusted her one day in the administration. I was adamantly opposed about her being hired as UN ambassador. She's a neoliberal neocon. She's a front woman for the Koch's tendencies in this country, which are against the people, against the populace, against the economic nationalists. And so we adamantly oppose her.
You had your own run-in with Donald Trump way back in the day. Can you see yourself going back into a Trump administration if he wins?
Well, you know, the War Room, our show, is the #1 supporter of President Trump. I talked to him last night after he gave it, not before he gave his speech, a congratulations speech, right when he went off the stage at the caucuses themselves. We're the biggest supporter of him. I've been very close to him. We clearly, every now and again, have falling out. You know, my policy is much farther right than President Trump, particularly on populism, particularly on America First, particularly on things like NATO and Ukraine, in China taking down the CCP. But we're the biggest supporters of President Trump, and think he's going to take on Joe Biden. And if we get the matchup we want, he'll blow out Biden and come back with the House, the Senate, governorships, and a sweeping victory in the 2024 election.
Well, let's hop beyond New Hampshire and through all of those processes and assume he makes it back to the White House. How different do you think that a second Trump administration would be to the first one? Because he won't have the same kind of people around him, and he seems to be thinking very differently about how to handle the presidency.
First off, I think he'll take on the administrator of a deep state. We have a fourth branch of government here that's kind of metastasized over the last 50 years. The same groups that try to nullify his first election. Remember, from the very first day that we won back in November of 16, they fought us tooth and nail. I think we'll have people around him who are remember, we're training up right now 3,000 people that get step into the government day one that don't need Senate confirmation. These are people that have the populist MAGA, America First agenda. We're working on those policies now. He will hit the beach with people that are like-minded and tough and know what we have to do this time. But that's why I think in Davos today, they're in total meltdown about the ascendancy of the MAGA movement and our leader, President Trump. But I think it'll be quite different. It'll be more like the first couple of years and not so much like the last couple of years.
We're talking about revenge here, aren't we?
I don't think it's revenge. I think revenge is too personalizing it. I think he understands, Andrew, that for the United States to be the leader in the world, you got to take care of the United States first. Remember, it's interesting about what's happening in Commons this week. We're having the same fight here in the United States. We have an invasion of 10 million illegal alien invaders in this country. It's blowing up the major cities in our country. We have a $2 trillion deficit annually structurally going forward. We have a Congress that's lockjammed. We're fighting right now to make sure we defund the Biden government on midnight this Friday, to have the MAGA conservatives in the House fight that. So we're in turmoil for the simple reason is the global elites and the elites in this country, the oligarchs that run this country, have gotten us there. And it's going to be a tough fight to get out, but we're prepared to fight.
A lot of people are still trying to get the handle on your politics and the politics of your movement. You've said in the past you're not a white nationalist. You don't like that kind of language. But way back in Lille at a National Front rally in, I think, 2018, you said to them, let them call you racist. Let them call you xenophobes. Let them call you nativists. Wear it as a badge of honor, because every day we get stronger and they get weaker. Is that what you still believe?
Andrew, I think if your producer goes and pulls for you what I said as the lead up to that, when they falsely accuse you of this because that's all they've got. I said when they start calling you those names, that's when you know you have.
So it's a false accusation you're talking about.
No.
A false accusation.
That's the last part of it. Look, I'm the leader in the world. I'm the only civilian in the history of the United States ever to be fully sanctioned by the Chinese Communist Party 5 minutes after Joe Biden was president of the United States. I'm the leader of the anti-Chinese Communist Party effort throughout the world, including in Hong Kong and Taiwan, in the United States. So how can someone be a white nationalist when we're fighting for Lao Beijing, we're fighting for the Chinese people? It's complete nonsense. This is what happens.
Okay.
Hang on. When the mainstream media and the global elites want to sit there and kind of, Alinsky somebody. They're not going to Alinsky me. Our movement's too big, too broad-scoped, and too powerful.
Let me take you on to foreign policy, which is where you were just now. I've just been talking to the Russian ambassador in London, Mr. Kalin, and he says that what Russia wants is for America to concentrate on America, Mexico, their part of the world, and as it were, to butt out of our part of the world, butt out of Europe. And that is very consonant with what President Trump has said in the past about wanting to cut ties with NATO. Is that what we're looking for?
Andrew, come on, you're better than that. It's never to cut ties. Right now, NATO is a protectorate. It's not an alliance. What we've always argued for, and I argued with the national security advisors of the individual NATO countries, we want it to be alliance. That means, like England and like Poland, you have to meet the minimum of the 2% of GDP to throw into the pot. But more importantly, you have to have a military that has interoperability. We train together. It's actually an alliance. It's not an alliance right now. It's basically an American security guarantee of European freedom, and that can't happen. You can't have countries in Europe that have health care, 6-week vacations, pension funds, and the American people have none of that. Right? Because we have $1 trillion, we have a $1 trillion defense budget. The wealthy in Europe that have dodged this bullet since the Second World War, and let's be brutally frank, outside of England and some partisan resistance in other parts of Europe and in Eastern Europe, we fought alone with England in World War II. The elites abandoned us to fascism at that time. We're not going to allow it this time. The elites of Europe have got to pitch in, and right now, Europe doesn't want to be a protector of the United States. We want a strong, robust alliance. We've wanted that from day one.
Donald Trump did say, and this is on the record, that he'd be dictator for one day. Is that long enough?
Andrew, he said that kidding with Sean Hannity to talk about drilling oil. Listen, all this stuff about being Trump as dictator, he gave you 4 years of peace, or he gave us 3.5 years of peace and prosperity until the Chinese Communist Party let a bioweapon out of the Wuhan lab. Trump's time was total stability. Yes, he put out some mean tweets and the media was all over him, but go back and look at the peace and prosperity, particularly the year of 2019, when throughout the world, non-college educated people, blue-collar laborers made more money than they've ever made since the 70s on a relative basis versus the chaos we have now. We have literally a geopolitical crisis. We have a war that's coming on the Eurasian landmass, whether it's in the South China Sea, whether it's in the Red Sea, whether it's in the Middle East, the Gulf Emirates, or particularly Eastern Europe. That's happening because of the fecklessness and haplessness of world leaders led by Joe Biden and, quite frankly, a handful of folks in Europe.
Earlier on, you were talking about Taiwan and China. What's your prognosis of what happens to that very, very difficult confrontation going on between mainland China, the Communist Party on the one hand, and Taiwan under its newly elected leader on the other, particularly under a Trump administration?
Well, President Trump, I think, he's done a great job of negotiating with Xi. We almost had that great deal in May of 2019 that was ripped up, and then had one that came out in January of 2020. I'm much harder line than President Trump is. I'm a big supporter of Taiwan independence. We're a huge backer of the DPP in this third victory. We think the Chinese Communist Party, remember, inside the White House, we were called the Super Hawks because a group of us, Peter Navarro, Stephen Miller, myself, we do not believe the Chinese Communist Party is the legitimate government of the Chinese people. We think Lao Beijing is outrageous, given how Hong Kong used to govern themselves and how Taiwan, the Free Republic of China, govern themselves. That 1.4 billion people, the Lao Beijing, old 100 names in China, does not have any democracy. They have a brutal dictatorship by this group of gangsters in Beijing. And we are absolutely committed. We are absolutely committed. A big part of MAGA is committed to take down the CCP in unison with Lao Beijing.
Final question. The phone goes, you pick it up. Donald Trump says, Steve, I want you back. What do you say?
Right now, our media company is going gangbusters supporting President Trump. But if President Trump ever asked me to come back to the campaign or to the White House, I would always do what President Trump asked me to do. This is one of the greatest leaders. This is only the third time in the history of our country, Andrew, General Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Donald Trump, that the fate and destiny of one man is the fate and destiny of our republic. So if President Trump, who I call the American Cincinnatus, if he called me and asked, I would do it.
Any better. I have already put evac on alert. He's ready to go if it comes to that. General, I can assure you.
Hey, General, let me into the war room to see you, so I had to hack my way onto this frequency.
This better be critical, Wheelie.
So, come on, what is it now, please? Okay, couple of things. I'm running low on the dough. I was thinking about taking a couple of months sick leave, maybe starting today. And, oh yeah. I intercepted a transmission from Megatron.
Then send it through.
Yes, sir, right away, sir. And so I'll assume that we're going on the other stuff.
This is your last warning, insects. Relinquish what remains of the Allspark.
So who's the insect? You? What? Who's the insect?
Protect you. They were defeated on our world, and we will defeat them here.
This was just a diversion. Security teams bring up. Rabbit, she's already inside. Deeds! Give me an update on that reserve. Boss readiness. What was his name? What was it?
Evac, sir.
Right, evac.
She's right in front.
We are facing a heavy, sustained attack. They appear to be after the Allspark craft. General Washington! General! We need to evac immediately. Evac everything. Hold on. National security advisory. Stay down. Check it out. The mission celebrations. The amateurs. Suicide mission.